Most bank robbers are caught within days. Some last weeks. A rare few make it months. But one man turned bank robbery into a mathematical equation and got away with it for 30 years. This is the true story of Carl Gugasian, the Friday night bank robber, a PhD student who applied statistics and military tactics to become America's most prolific bank robber. The making of a criminal genius. Carl Gugasian was born on October 12, 1947 in Broomall, Pennsylvania, to Armenian immigrant parents. His journey into crime began at just 15 years old when he attempted to rob a candy store. The robbery went wrong, the proprietor shot him, and young Carl was sent to a state youth facility for 18 months. Here's where the story takes an unusual turn. When Carl was released in 1964, he made a decision that would shape the next 40 years of his life. FBI agent Ray Carr, who would eventually help capture him, explained the crucial misunderstanding. He didn't know that juvenile records get expunged. He thought he'd never be able to get a real job. Believing his future was already ruined, Carl didn't try to go straight. Instead, he made a calculated decision to become the best criminal he could possibly be. Education as a criminal tool. But Gugasian wasn't going to be just any criminal. In 1971, he enrolled at Villanova University to study electrical engineering. While there, he joins the Reserve Officers Training Corps, a military recruitment program designed to produce officers for the U.S. Armed Forces. After graduation, he served in the U.S. Army at Fort Bragg, where he received special forces training and tactical weapons expertise. He learned map reading, tactical movement, and advanced combat techniques. But Carl wasn't preparing to serve his country, he was preparing to rob it. Following his military service, he returned to college and earned a master's degree in systems analysis from the University of Pennsylvania. Then he began doctoral work in statistics and probabilities at Pennsylvania State University. His training in probability theory and systems analysis would prove invaluable, but not in the way his professors imagined. By day, he worked as an engineer and statistician in an upscale Philadelphia suburb. By night, he planned the perfect crime. The science of bank robbery. Gugasian's robberies were meticulously planned and executed. Using topographical and street maps, he selected small-town banks which were next to wooded areas by nearby highway on-ramps. His methodology was pure applied statistics. He would study maps in libraries for hours, calculating optimal escape routes and analyzing risk factors. He looked for specific criteria: small-town banks, proximity to forests, quick access to highways, and late closing times during autumn and winter months when darkness would cover his escape. But the planning didn't stop there. He would observe the target from the woods for several days to glean insight on employee behavior, waiting to strike in autumn or winter for earlier darkness. On average, he conducted 8 or more dry runs before each robbery, timing every movement, calculating every variable. He created hidden caches in the woods where he stored everything he needed: weapons, ammunition, maps, horror movie masks, food supplies, and survival gear. These weren't simple hiding spots. He sealed equipment in PVC pipes and hid them in concrete drainage pipes. Over his career, he created 18 secret bunkers across the Northeast. The perfect crime pattern. He carried out the robberies on Friday nights just before closing time, believing this minimized the number of customers present and maximized the cash on hand. It was a brilliant calculation. Friday nights meant tellers had more cash after a week of deposits. Late hours meant fewer witnesses. Small towns meant slower police response times. His appearance was designed to terrorize while hiding his identity. Characteristically, he wore a frightening face mask, such as a character from a horror film, making sure it fit snugly to hide the color of his skin, and wore bulky clothes to hide his build. He favored Freddy Krueger masks and other horror characters. Entering the bank carrying a pistol, he moved in a crab-like manner to confuse estimates of his height. He wore scent blockers to confuse police dogs. Every detail was calculated to minimize the evidence he left behind. His first robbery took place in 1973 after he chickened out 8 times. In a court memorandum, prosecutors said Gugasian flew to North Carolina and used a stolen car to rob his first bank, but not before backing out 8 times. But once he started, he was unstoppable. For 30 years, he struck again and again, always following his precise formula. 3 decades of success. Carl Gugasian robbed more than 50 banks over a 30-year period, stealing a total of more than $2 million. He operated from Virginia to New England, never staying in one area too long, never breaking his pattern enough to be predictable, yet consistent enough that the FBI eventually gave him a nickname. The FBI called him the Friday Night Bank Robber. They knew his pattern, they had his profile, but they couldn't catch him. He planned each robbery carefully, donned scent block to confuse police dogs, made dry runs of his escapes, and almost always struck in your closing time on Friday nights. During his spree, there were only 2 incidents where his gun discharged. In 1991, during a robbery at Jim Thorpe National Bank in Pennsylvania, his weapon accidentally fired, shooting bank manager Dean Klotz in the abdomen. Klotz survived. In another incident, a police officer named Robert McAllister pursued him and was shot. Though McAllister initially survived, he eventually died from complications in 2019, nearly 30 years after the shooting. These were the only instances of violence in an otherwise methodical, calculated crime spree. The unraveling. For all his genius, for all his planning, Carl Gugasian was brought down by simple bad luck. 2 boys playing in the woods in Rodner, Pennsylvania, discovered Gugasian's hidden cache of plans and equipment, maps, face masks, food, weapons, and ammunition sealed in PVC pipes hidden in a concrete drainage pipe. The boys turned their discovery over to police, who suddenly had a treasure trove of evidence. The maps, the weapons, the detailed notes, it all pointed to one of the most sophisticated criminal operations in American history. Among the cache was a brochure from a local karate studio where Gugasian trained. It also contained his fingerprints. Police questioned local residents and compiled a list of suspects. Eventually, the trail led to Carl Gugasian. He was arrested in 2002 at age 55, ending one of the longest successful crime sprees in U.S. history. Cooperation and consequence. When arrested, Gugasian proved to be just as meticulous in providing help to the police as he had been in robbing the banks. He confessed to dozens of robberies. He explained his methodology in detail. As part of a plea bargain, Gugasian confessed to dozens more robberies and offered to help FBI agents understand what makes for a successful heist. He was also slated to appear in an FBI training video that would be distributed to law enforcement academies. His cooperation was extraordinary. He wanted them to understand the mind of a criminal genius. His initial sentence of 115 years was reduced to just 17 years because of his extensive help to authorities. In prison, he taught mathematics to other inmates, finally using his education for legitimate purposes. He was released on May 5, 2017, at age 69. The legacy. What makes Carl Gugasian's story remarkable isn't the amount he stole. $2 million over 30 years averages out to about $67,000 per year, hardly a fortune for someone of his intellect. What makes his story unforgettable is the contrast between his capabilities and his choices. Here was a man with a master's degree, doctoral-level training, military expertise, and a third-degree black belt in karate. He could have excelled in academia, industry, or government. Instead, he spent 3 decades living in the shadows, applying regression models and probability theory to armed robbery. He operated in the shadows, succeeding precisely because he didn't care to be known, and was brought down by bad luck. Carl Gugasian turned robbery into an optimization problem. He treated banks like data points, escape routes like equations, and risk like a variable to be minimized. For 30 years, his calculations were perfect. In the end, the genius who turned robbery into a science proved that even the most careful planning can't account for random chance. 2 boys playing in the woods where he'd hidden his equipment for years. That's all it took to end one of the most sophisticated criminal careers in American history.